the state. I'm pumped up because we had at least an inch of rain and haze. We desperately needed some on our side of the state. I think I'm over raking leaves. So that has been a chore. I have two big ash trees in my house surrounding. Yeah, it has been a long couple weeks.
Hey, we have, I think it's the oak trees have acorns, and
Oh,
those are all over our yard. And what's worse, sometimes I don't have my shoes on when I go outside to like just walk on the concrete to take the trash out, and they hurt your feet when you walk on them.
I bet they do.
Yeah.
Um, but I am fascinated with, with this leaves dropping and everything, and you see the ecosystem that goes on in your trees, and you look up, and I have these big squirrel nests
Oh
high
yeah.
up. And so, now we're like, should we get some cotton and put it down underneath the tree to help their bedding? I'm like,
Oh
I
yeah.
think you reach a certain age when like the trees, or not the trees, the squirrels, the birds, all of that, I'm like, how do I keep my ecosystem going in my yard? It's fascinating.
For sure. And I also noticed last night the sound of the rain with all of the leaves on the ground. It was very different coming that and the smell of the leaves with the rain, with it being nice and kind of warm still. So that was lovely.
That's like a sensory piece that, yeah, you forget with the change of seasons. Well, welcome to the Early Childhood Recommendations panel. Lindsay is going to get our live stream started. Okay, let's do Act 2. Welcome. All right, Act 3. Welcome to the recommendations panel. My name is Melissa Schoenberger. I will serve as your chair. And just welcome to this lovely Friday. We've been discussing before we started our live stream, the definitely moving into fall and into fall weather. And prior to that, so you'll have to forgive me. It has been a long week. I don't know if it's been the weather, it's just work demands, knowing that we are going to have a short week next week. And I just think, that if we've made it to today and we've made it, definitely to the Friday before we move into what I like to call our crazy season, just give everybody a pat on the back and reminding that this is a remote meeting. All of our meeting materials will be posted on the Children's Cabinet webpage. And if, again, to panel members, as we've been chatting before we started our live stream, that now that we're into our formal meeting, if you could please introduce yourself and your name prior to coming off mute. If you could raise your hand, I will be making sure and monitoring that we capture you. And so now we're going to go with the very formal components of our meeting, and then move on to all of the really good stuff, the meats of the meeting. Lindsay, if you want to move to the next slide, please. Um, for those of us who are joining, like to remind new to joining the recommendations panel during our live stream that really like to just have this as a quick placeholder for everybody to remember that the recommendation panel serves as an advisory group to the Children's Cabinet and supports and moves along the strategic plan embedded in the All In for Kansas Kids website. And then we will get to the formal components. Here's today's agenda. Right now we're in the welcome, and we're going to go to the approval of the November agenda and the approval of the October meeting minutes. Everybody was sent the agenda on Monday. So if we could have somebody come off mute, introduce themselves, and approve the November agenda.
This is Natalie McLean. I'll make a motion to approve the November agenda.
Okay, if I can get a second for that, please.
Abdul Yahaya with Open Minds, I second.
Okay, if we can have a thumbs up to approve that, or raised hand. Fabulous. And if we can have a same sign if anybody does not approve the agenda for today. Great. Now we're going to move on to the approval of the October minutes. If I could have somebody come off mute, identify themselves, and make a motion to approve our October minutes.
This is Maritas. I make a motion to approve the October minutes.
Great. If I can have somebody second that, please.
This is Christina Small. I second.
Okay, if we can have a vote on that and a hands up or thumbs up, that would be great. Okay, and if we can have, if anybody would like to disapprove the October minutes, if we can have that same sign. Okay, we will move forward with approval of the October minutes and the November agenda, and we will move to the more meat of our meeting today. Again, Kansas Open Forum, putting out a call to action for anybody who wishes to join our panel. You have an opportunity to submit a question, any type of article you'd like the panel to look into by 5 o'clock the previous day of any formal panel meeting. Again, we did not to have anybody submit anything, so we're going to go straight into talking about Kansas in the news. We're going to find our own open forum. And really wanted to share Kansas in the news. This week, Governor Kelly proclaimed November 18th as National Injury Prevention Day in Kansas. The Kansas Children's Cabinet is a member of the Safe Kids Kansas coalition, which a lot of partner agencies that are represented on the panel are also. So wanted to just highlight that again, saw this in the news this week as National Injury Prevention Day. And I take that to heart. Making sure that we are good stewards in our ecosystem, in our early childhood ecosystem, of making sure that children are wearing helmets when they're biking, and making sure they have good equipment. And Safe Kids Kansas is housed within our partner of the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and really started digging in onto their website, and want you guys, to spend some time if you have never been on their website, especially as we're getting into the holiday season, looking at toy safety and spending some time on fire and burn prevention, especially as we're looking at, now we're going to have, love the soft lighting that comes with candles in the fall and Christmas season, but really what and also danger that they present. So there's such a depth of information on the Safe Kids Kansas website. So if you've not spent any time on there, really wanting to dig into that. And again, just honoring that this week we had the National Injury Prevention Day in Kansas. Lindsay, if you want to move on. Okay, so we are going to do some panel introductions. We're going to do our round 3. And because we have a depth of presentation today, really in-depth presentation, we're only going to do 5. And remember, we're really limiting our panel introductions to 1 or 2 minutes. So if Mallory is here this morning, we're going to ask Mallory to come off mute and start our panel introductions.
Think we don't have Mallory.
Okay, then we will transition straight to Megan. We don't have Megan today either, Lindsay?
Think we might only have Tabitha at this point.
Okay.
And
Tabitha?
if I'm reading the participant list correct.
Okay, so Tabitha, if you'd like to come off mute, let's have you give a warm introduction.
Yes. Good morning. I'm Tabitha Rossbroy, and I work for Kansas Parent Information Resource Center. and I am the Early Childhood Project Coordinator for them. Formerly was a classroom teacher in early childhood for about 13 years. Also the 2020 National Teacher of the Year and Kansas Teacher of the Year, and recently was appointed to the Children's Cabinet by Governor Kelly. So wearing a lot of hats and happy to be here.
I had the pleasure of listening to Tabitha at the home visiting conference in September. And I'm going to just give you a shout out, Tabitha.
Yeah.
If anybody has an opportunity to be in her space and listen to Tabitha's shared story and presentation, you will laugh. You will need your Kleenex and you will laugh again and you will be so inspired.
Aw.
So I think the panel is very lucky to have Tabitha as a panel member and have really enjoyed being in your space.
Well, thank you so much. I am enjoying every minute.
Thank you. All right, so we will just keep moving forward with panel introductions. Today, as I shared, we have an in-depth presentation for you guys today. And it may at times be, it's going to be a lot of data, but the panel should be open to really absorbing this and be really open to how does this impact me? And so today we are going to be joining us Priya and Nisha. Did I say that correct?
Nisha, yes.
Nisha,
I think.
okay. And with a last name like Schoenberger, I tried to be really conscientious to make sure that I am pronouncing everybody's name correctly. From our KU CPPR team, focusing on some very poignant work with families, and they conducted a parent survey. If we can move to the next slide, Lindsay. And so what I would like as you as a panel member is really to look at why is this content important to the panel? How can work groups utilize the data? And what would you like to know more about? Because obviously, even though the presentation will be very in-depth, there's still going to be points and opportunities that you're going to like, oh, I wish I knew more about that. Oh, I need, can we tug on that thread just a little bit more? So keep that in mind as you're moving through this. And I really want to as we were preparing for this presentation, really wanted to go back to the blueprint of why when we talk about families and we really engage parents and the All In for Kansas Kids strategic plan and the original blueprint is that all children have their basic needs met with access to quality early childhood opportunities so they are prepared to succeed in kindergarten and beyond. So I take that very, very much to heart and use that as my guidepost every day in my work. And so was really excited when we started looking at this content. But we're going to challenge you guys before we dive into this content with a little exercise. Because I really wanted you to create the space. And we're going to do this together. Recently, last month, we had the governor's conference hosted by Kansas Children's Service League. And there was some pointed institutes on the first day. And I attended one that really challenged us as members in that space to really put ourselves into just a good reality check of what families are going through. And loved the activity. And it really, so we're going to do this as a group. I'm going to call on each one of you guys. And as a group, you're going to make decisions as we move through the reality that families are facing. And we're going to see if we can, and I say we, using the quotes, if we can make it through 1 month with money left over and see the real reality of choices that we're making. So we as a group are collectively going to accept the challenge. And so we're going to have Lindsay move through through this process. So Lindsay, if you accept the challenge on behalf of the panel, let's keep moving forward. Okay, let's go ahead. So you're gonna have to pay attention here. Read this. So for those who may not have seen that, you've lost your job, you have insecure housing, and you're down to your last $1,000. And we're going to see if we can make it through the month. So the first thing I'm going to accept is we're going to find a job. So Lindsay, if you can accept that. So we found a job. And I see Abdul on my screen first. So Abdul, you're going to do our first question for us. You're running out of money fast. It's time to get a job. Any job. Here's what's available, and you choose one. So you can go down 2 routes.
What's the second one? I can just see the second shift. Okay. All right. I'll
There
do.
might be one more
Okay.
restaurant.
I will do second shift. I'm worried about childcare.
Okay, Natalie, I see you next on screen. Stay healthy. All that lifting and repetitive packing can be brutal on your body. So we're going to continue here. So you have what you're being made. The Affordable Act requires you to get health insurance. The good news, your child is covered by the state. The bad news, you aren't. Which plan do you want, Natalie?
I can't see them because I don't have my glasses on. Hey,
That's
that helps.
fair.
Thank you so much. We are going to do, let's do the silver plan.
Okay, results. You've got solid coverage and a medium copay, but it's costing you over 110 a paycheck. So we're going to continue. Lindsay, if you can hit continue. Okay. And then I see we have some static background.
It's the sound the thing is making. I can try to
Okay.
turn the sound off, but it's like cars and traffic.
Okay, I forgot about that. That's
If
okay,
I'm it looks like if I'm unmuted, it maybe stops it. So if you want me to stay unmuted, I can do that.
Please do, Lindsay.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to find a place to live. You have $725 for rent, and then you have $83 for travel costs. And then we're going to pay in. So you're going to hit pay, Lindsay.
Well, how close are we living versus how far?
So we're going to ask Trina to make that decision for us.
Okay, I'm going to say we live 25 miles.
I don't know. Does that, 25, that's about half.
There you go.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah.
Works for me.
So, Trina, you choose to live farther away from your job so your rent is lower, but your gas costs are higher. In fact, for every dollar a working family saves on housing, they spend an additional 77 cents on transportation. And I love that you pick that, Trina, because we're a rural state. So that's very much a reality. So if you can continue, Lindsay. Okay, your new apartment is too small for your stuff. What do you want to do, Tammy? Rent a storage unit, have a yard sale, or ask a friend to store it?
Well, I will have a yard sale.
Okay, you were successful. You sold a bunch of spot stuff, but you only made $150. Okay, Mandy, one of your coworkers has gotten seriously ill because your company doesn't offer sick days. Everyone is contributing $20 to help her out. What do you want to do? Pitch in or say you forgot your wallet? Mandy? Okay, we will move on to Christy. What do you want to do?
Oh, I'm gonna have to pitch in.
Okay, David, your child comes home in tears and threatens to stop eating lunch because other kids made fun of all the free lunch kits. What do you want to do? Add lunch money to your monthly budget or risk them going hungry?
You add lunch money to monthly budget.
Okay, so result $3 doesn't seem like much, but a month of lunches takes a big bite out of your cash. So if everybody's paying attention, there's our balance off to the left-hand side. Okay, Jenny. Jenny Smith, you've been putting off doing laundry for weeks because you don't have a washer or dryer. What do you want to do? Go to the laundromat for $30, ask a friend, or wear dirty clothes.
Ask a friend.
Hey,
Okay.
you probably
Bethany.
can't see it, but it did actually pull up a Facebook link for me. So
Oh, that's sweet. Bethany, your child is above average in language skills, but is struggling with math. What do you want to do? Hire a tutor for $50, give your child help, or ask a friend?
Give my child help. Oh, do I have to answer this?
You can't help if you don't know your stuff. Can you solve this problem? Bethany, I forgot this. I must have picked another option because this is making me sweat profusely because I do not do math very well. It is not my forte. So I see some people off writing. Is somebody trying to figure out this answer for them? Mallory, you are, aren't you? Okay,
Priya says
Priya said it's
X
3.
equals 3.
X equals 3.
That sounds good to me.
See, luckily, because of our village, you're able to help your child out. Most Americans aren't so lucky. A study found out that more than 50% of parents have trouble helping their child with math and science. And I think we all had a really real moment there. Okay, Cornelia, a bunch of friends are going to a free concert tonight. You want to go, but you've got a kid to worry about. What do you do? Get a babysitter for $30 or stay home? I don't think we heard you, Cornelia.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Stay home.
Okay. Okay, result. Everyone needs a break sometimes, except not everyone can afford one. That's probably why stress levels are higher among low-wage workers. Payday. Mallory, your income level qualifies you for food stamps. What do you want to do? Apply or go hungry?
Apply.
The good news is you're approved for benefits. The bad news, they don't begin until next month. Everyone is pitching in for a lottery pool. What do you want to do, Desiree? Do you want to pay $10 to play or don't play?
Don't play.
Result. It seems like a waste of money, but for people like you who have no 401k or savings account, it can look like an investment in a better future. Your kid has a friend over when you hear the telltale sound of the ice cream truck. They both run over to the truck. What do you want to do? And who has not? Melissa, what do you want to do? Buy some ice cream for $5 or do you say no?
I buy some ice cream.
Money may be tight, but you have to eat. Remember, the groceries need to last a few weeks. What do you want to buy? And I'm going to let Lindsay do this one because she is driving this. So, Lindsay,
Okay.
what do you want to buy?
Okay. I'm gonna buy some peanut butter, some milk, apples, toilet paper, some eggs, bread, cheese, cereal, and chicken.
Thank you, Lindsay. Every year, almost 15% of American households have a hard time getting enough to eat at some point. Okay, Tabitha, your grandfather has passed away. The memorial service is being held several states away. What do you want to do? Fly out for the service? Drive out to the service, skip the memorial?
Let me just say, having grown up in poverty, these are very real situations and decisions that people have to make all of the time. And just knowing what we would have done, drive to the service.
You made it to the service, but driving all night to get there means you are more exhausted than usual. Without warning, your landlord has raised your rent, effective immediately. When you argue that the increase is illegal, you're told if you don't like it, you can move out. What do you want to do, Amy? Goshmeyer.
Well, I'm sure this is not an easy, this isn't an easy question. Just finding somewhere else to live is not going to be easy. I feel like I want to do both. I want to probably just pay it right now and also be looking for somewhere else to live because I probably can't do that overnight. Yeah. You know what? No, they have to get me out of there. So find somewhere else to live and let them try and get me out until I do.
There are lots of places you could move, except they all required a security deposit and first and last month rents. So you're stuck paying the money.
Okay.
Okay, Kim, you're sure you weren't speeding, but the cop who gave you a ticket disagrees. What do you want to do? Pay it off, $250, or contest it in court?
I would say I would probably pay it off because going to court could potentially require me having to take off work and may not be able to afford to do that. So I'd probably just pay it off.
Okay, made it to payday again. Okay, Christina, your child has been invited to a birthday party. They need to bring a present. What do you want to do? Buy the presents, send your child without a present, or keep your child home from the party?
We are going to buy the present.
Okay, Becca, your child wants to join an after-school sports team, which requires a physical and uniform. What do you want to do? Say yes for $50 or say no?
This is a very real experience. I also experienced as a child. and with my own. Is there an option for us to pay, but then look at getting more cash through plasma donation?
No,
No.
unfortunately, these are our choices.
Okay, say yes.
Do you love the real reality check there, though? I love what you added, Becca. Keeping us very much focused. Talia, on the way to drop off for your kid at school, something blew in your car. You don't know what's wrong, but it can't be good. What do you want to do? Pay to fix it? Ask a friend for help? Get it towed? Leave it behind and take the bus?
These are also real life. I would say ask a friend for help.
Okay, you're walking down the street when you see someone drop a $10 bill. Read us. If you're able to, what do you want to do? Give it to them or pocket the $10?
I will give it to them.
Okay, Karen, you're walking into work when someone approaches you in the parking lot. They want to organize a union and push for better pay. What do you want to do?
I'm gonna keep walking.
Okay.
You've got a text message.
Like you, many low-income workers would rather keep quiet than push for better working conditions because they don't want to risk their job. Okay, Patty, your family pet is sick and won't get better without treatment. What do you want to do? Pay for treatment, have it put to sleep, let your pet suffer.
Gosh, this was a tough one for me to put on here with the pet for sure. Maybe I think based on my balance right now, I'm gonna have to let my pet suffer for a bit here.
I know, I felt really bad asking you that, Patty. I felt anybody. Janelle, your bathroom sink has a small leak that just became a big leak. Your landlord won't return your calls and you can't put it off any longer. What do you want to do? Call a plumber or try to fix it yourself?
I'm kind of handy, so I would try to fix it myself. And I've been in that situation, so.
Okay, home improvement is cheaper when you do it yourself, but not free. Supplies will still cost you $50. Okay, Kelly, we've made it to payday, but your head is pounding and you're burning up, but you have to be at work in an hour, Kelly. What do you want to do? Call in sick or go anyway?
I'm going anyway.
Like you, Kelly, more than 33 million working Americans do not get paid sick leave. So, like you, they go to work even when they probably shouldn't. Okay, Brenda, your tooth has been hurting for weeks and it's starting to get unbearable. You need a root canal and you don't have dental insurance. What do you want to do, Brenda? Get it fixed for $400 or use some numbing gel?
Oh my goodness, how did you know my husband was an endodontist?
Yeah,
you did not, but yeah, I would use some numbing gel to buy myself some time and ignore my husband.
We won't tell him, Brenda.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, 1 in 2 Americans don't have dental insurance, and without coverage, putting off basic care could mean emergency surgery that's twice as expensive. Hey, Heather, we're going to ask you the next question. A little exercise goes a long ways both for keeping healthy and relieving stress. You need to start a regular fitness regimen. What do you want to do? Join a gym, Heather? Ask a friend to be your running buddy or put it off?
Well, I should ask a friend. I'll probably end up putting it off, but well, let's go with ask a friend.
Thank you. I'd probably ask a friend too. Okay, Audrey, your child's class is going on a field trip to a natural history museum. The trip costs $15. What do you want to do? Pay it or don't pay, and our balance is off to the left.
I'm gonna pay it.
Okay, Megan, your neighbor is moving and has offered to pay you $50 to help, but they reserved the truck during the time your kid will be starring in a school play. What do you want to do? Take the job or go see the play? And Megan may not be available, so we're going to move over to April.
I would go see the play.
It's a tough one. Sarah, your friend of a friend needs a place to stay. He's offered you $200 to camp out in your living room. What do you want to do? Say yes or no.
Friend. I would say no.
Becky, your stress level is through the roof these days. A friend who hears you venting offers you a cigarette to take the edge off. What do you want to do?
I would have to say no.
One of the main reasons people start smoking as adults is stress. There's a misconception that smoking relieves stress, so some people pick up the habit during difficult periods or times or transitions. That was an interesting fact for me. Okay, you made it through this month with $716, but rent's due tomorrow. So, now this is the end. So we made it. You guys were very successful. And I encourage you as a group, if you have a staff, this is a great activity because it does take you down so many different threads. Like this is just one example. I had my adult daughter do this. And one of the questions were, do you buy your mom medicine? And she texted me right away. And when we were in this, Mom, I did buy you medicine. She goes, it was a tough choice though. It was a very tough choice. Do I take care of my children or do I buy my adults parent medicine? And so different questions each and every time. I personally did not make it the first time I did this activity. So really wanted to use this as a preface to our parent survey and then some follow-up questions that I want to challenge you guys with, like what emotions came up for you? I was very anxious because I kept looking at the calculator. Like it was making me in real time feel very anxious. And as Tabitha, and we've had others share, I too came from a family that struggled financially, and it brought back memories of really hard choices that I didn't recognize at the time that my family was making for the benefit of myself, and realize now as a parent what those sacrifices meant, and I was a child at the school who got called second because you were waiting for your tickets because you were the free lunch kid and they would check you off, and the different discrepancies and what that how schools have evolved to really make sure that nobody knows who's eligible, but that little blue ticket, it was a real reality of mine in elementary school. So I'm going to pause and see if anybody else would like to share what emotions came up during this activity.
I was pretty anxious. Melissa like through it. And just especially as I watched a lot of us make a decision to not care for ourselves, right? As the adult. I'm just thinking about how you can't care for someone if you're not taken care of too. And but that's the reality, you know? The reality is that we will choose our children over us, but like dental pain is so dangerous. If you don't get dental care taken care of, that can cause an infection in your brain and I mean your blood. It's like very scary. And um but I put in the chat, it was not lost on me that all of us were protecting our job and we're all, in the early education field or friends of early education. And that's a reality too. Like look in the pandemic, who was at work, look in these other hard times, we're there. And so just man, just, it hit me today. It got me a little bit of tears in my eyes as I watched us all make these decisions.
What decision felt the hardest to make? Because I know we were all, even though Desiree and Patty and, Becca were all making different decisions, we all wanted to make that decision for them.
So Melissa,
everybody
we've got a few hands up, Mandy and Tammy, and maybe even a couple
Yeah,
others.
Mandy, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I felt so bad for Patty because I have 3 dogs, and I'm like, I wanted to pay that money. I don't want my animals to suffer. They're just like my children. So I was like, oh, what's Patty gonna do? So I felt really bad for Patty. That one gave me a lot of anxiety.
I felt the same too. Tammy.
I think for me, the hardest one was, do you help someone move for $50 or do you go to your child's event? $50 is a lot of money in this type of a situation, but we all want to support our children all the time. And just to play off of what Tabitha was saying, I also came up in a family that struggled tremendously. And as an adult, trying to make those ends meet month to month, and I've lived paycheck to paycheck. It feels like you're waiting to live. And at some point, you have to decide if you're going to live or if you're going to continue to wait to live so that you can try to get ahead. And I think that for me, those feelings came up tremendously.
Thank you for being so real and honest with us, Tammy, this morning. April.
Yeah, mine was the one to earn $50 or to go to the child's program. And I have lived homeless with my son. He was born first. I was pregnant with my daughter. And it's a very hard choice, but I still feel like that was the best choice. But I agree so much with what Tabitha has said, putting the jobs first and all of that stuff. It's just a very hard situation to be in. And being in the field that we're in, I see it every day. I see the choices that these parents have to make, whether it's paying childcare or being laid off for the last 6 weeks during all this. And the stress that we take on, the secondary stress, is just as hard because we want to fix things for our childcare families, and we can't. We have to take care of ourselves. So making that choice every week is as hard as some of those choices that those parents were making in that we just did.
It's a tough balance because we are all, I want to say, nurturers by nature. And so in this early childhood ecosystem, I'm going to take a few more questions or comments, and then we're going to move into the presentation. Brenda.
Yes, I think, like many have said, the decisions relating to our children were all the toughest for me. And I think about the front that many people put on that we do about not wanting children to know how bad things really are. And so I think every time there was a decision about, whether to buy a gift or attend that play, we always deferred. It seemed like there was a trend. Somebody else had mentioned putting others first. And it seemed our children always come first. Just an observation.
I appreciate that, Brenda. And we definitely will not tell your husband you chose the gel, because I too chose the gel. And I'm like, how much numbing cream can we put on there?
Yeah.
We have, we will keep it our secret. Laura and Heather hands up. So we'll go to Laura first and then Heather.
Laura Evans. So the one that hit the hardest for me was the let a friend of a friend for $200 stay at your house. That's a significant amount of money. But considering if you have children in the home, a friend of a friend, you're not. Maybe you don't know, and I don't know. That's just inviting a lot of unknown into your house. But the $200 would have been extremely helpful too. So that would be a really hard one.
That was a tough one. You're right, $200 versus an unknown. It is, and those are very much everyday realities. And then we have Heather.
I could feel my anxiety rise when they were picking the groceries. I remember as a kid watching my mom cut coupons and thinking it looked so amazing. And then when I became an adult and got married, I would try and do it. And just the stress of walking through the aisles of the grocery store and trying to keep track, like, how much am I spending? How much am I spending? Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get emotional. Like, I just thinking about people that are just struggle just to, buy food. And so that anxiety while she was picking stuff, I was like, no, don't buy cereal. Get something else. I hate that there are so many people that struggle with such basic needs. And also extremely grateful that I don't have that today. I don't think about it as knowingly as I once did. So
Yeah, that was a struggle. And I think consistently across the board, peanut butter, when you think about what you're giving to your offering to any food pantries, any groups, thinking about those basic necessities and then some fun items too. But yeah, that was a struggle too. Heather, Rebecca.
Like we've really talked about, everyone feels this angst and anxiety, that occurs with all these decisions. And I just think about the impact of every decision and how that affects their mental health and physical health, and then wears down the body. And so then there's just these long-term, impacts on the caregiver, the parent, the person making all these very hard decisions that you don't always see the effects immediately, from day in and day out, having to make really hard choices, and the level that stress can kind of tear up your body in every way. So that's kind of what I kept thinking about, like as it went on, thinking, and then they wake up tomorrow and have another whole set of really hard questions, and they don't have a lot of time. They don't to process. They just have to decide, and that's stressful too.
I would agree. We are going to have one more come off mutes. We're going to have April introduce her or make a comment, and then we're going to move right in transition our next content over to our guest speakers today. April. April, was your hand up just maybe an accident? Might be. Okay, so we're just going to transition our content right over to our guest speakers today. So it is an honor to introduce Priya and Nisha to really solidify and share with us what is happening in Kansas. What are our Kansas parents saying? And some aha moments that we'll discuss through the presentation. But I'm going to turn it over to our guest speakers.
Hi everyone, this is Nisha Tasneem. I'm working as a research assistant senior at the CPPR KU. My background is in economics and public policy. I have now worked almost 3 years for the implementation and evaluation of Family First Prevention Services here in Kansas. My work largely focuses on children and family well-being. So I will just let my co-presenter Priya introduce herself at this point.
Hi everyone, my name is Priya Vanchi Kadavasal and my background is in public health and community behavioral psychology, and my work focuses on child and family well-being, preventive services, and system transformation in Kansas. Much of my research centers on helping people understand what families experience on the ground and how policies land in real life. I've spent the last few years supporting the implementation and evaluation of the Family First Prevention Services Act in Kansas, and I also support other statewide initiatives that help strengthen early childhood systems. I'll let Nishat continue.
So today we'll share the findings of parent survey. The parent survey is a statewide survey. We have been administering this from 2019. And today we're going to share the findings from the 2025 parent survey. We'll explore what Kansas parents and caregivers shared about their experiences about raising young children in our state. We collected responses from Kansas caregivers on their day-to-day experience of raising young children. We also shared a survey by email last evening. So it was shared because we wanted to go through what were the questions that we were asking the Kansas parents and caregivers. We asked about the demographic information, which is largely around their age, what county they're from, and then their education level, race, ethnicity, income, all of those factors. We asked about their community support access, and what do they have available in the community for them and how it works out. And then we move to the well-being section of it, where we ask families specifically about 5 domains of well-being and how they would rate themselves last year versus this year. So it was a retrospective way of reporting out the well-being. So we'll focus now on the findings of the survey. Today, this is how it is going to look like for us. We'll share how the survey methods are looking like. The survey was conducted online in 2020, in the summer of 2025. We invited Kansas parents and caregivers over the age of 18 who currently have a children living at their home and they're taking care of them. The survey recruitment was handled by a third-party agency who ensured a panel recruitment to ensure diversity and representation all across the state of Kansas. This is to ensure that we have a statewide reach and also be very inclusive in our respondent pool while we're gathering the data. So who shared their stories? We heard from over 2,200 respondents across 97 counties. Nearly half are caring for children under 5. You can see, and the sample reflects the Kansas demographics, giving us the confidence that these are very representative insights that we're getting from our survey pool, because it's quite a large representative sample, and reaching 97 counties was a fit of its own. We have never been able to get to 97 counties. So this was a great success for this year. Moving on, the responses came from every region, Kansas City, Wichita, and the rural areas of Northwest, Southeast, Northeast, and Southeast as well. So ensuring sort of a balanced view of family experience statewide. So here we can see that we have this urban and rural voice included, and we will be able to share the stories of the family to back the data. So the household and economic, this section is sort of going to provide us about the realities of families, like family income, education, employment, what shapes their daily lives, and their ability to access services. Understanding these factors will help us sort of interpret the well-being scores later that I just mentioned, that we have this well-being domains that we ask every family to rate themselves. So just keep in mind this family's economic realities influence their ability to access resources and maintain stability. While we were playing this activity spent, we realize how these economic realities influence your ability to access any resources and maintain the stability that you want in your family. Moving on from there, so we have this employment distribution where we see that out of this 2,214 respondents, over 1,100 worked full-time. About 386 people are unemployed, and 243 people work part-time. And you can also see that self-employment and temporary work also appear, showing that there's a diverse employment situation. Going for the respondent pool, employment is a key driver of family stability. Most respondents, if you can see, over half are employed full-time, but nearly 400 are also unemployed. And many are relying on this part-time and seasonal work. This mix of employment reflects the economic vulnerability for some families and many of the families around us. So just having that in mind, that most respondents are working full-time, but a substantial number are also unemployed and in unreliable jobs because part-time, they're depending on the part-time work. Moving on from there, if we look at the education distribution level of the respondent pool, there are like nearly 600 respondents who have a high school diploma. And 443 have some level of college. About 300 people hold a bachelor's degree. So more than half of the respondents are educated at a college level or above. So adding to the previous slide that most of the half of the respondents are also like fully employed. So there's this trend we're thinking that these people are at a level where they have a college level degree and they are also fully employed. Going to the next slide. So we ask people like, what's your annual household income from all of the sources? Just focus on like, we asked about the annual household income, not personal income. The income distribution of the respondents showed economic diversity because more than 1/3 makes under $40,000 per month for their entire household. This means a large segment is facing financial strain on a monthly basis. Additionally, if you see, although 29% of the respondents earn over $60,000, it is much below the median household income in Kansas. For average household size in Kansas, the median household income should be around $72,000. So many of these families are living near or below economic hardship thresholds. So this financial reality affects their access to childcare, to housing, to health services, what they can have access at any point in time. We also ask families, like the number of children, moving on from there. We also ask families, like, how many children of age birth to 18 do you have living in your home? And most families reported to have 2 or more children, while some care for 3 or more. So the household size adds complexity to this financial and caregiving needs. And the household income we just discussed. Larger households often face greater financial and logistical challenges that we see in our day-to-day life. We also ask families, moving on from all of this household size experiences and their economic and educational level, like which are the following that defines your own life experience and circumstances. Because even if all of these people are reporting this education level, income, and also their employment statuses, there might be some event in their life that defines how they go about their day-to-day life. And many families reported having low income and special healthcare needs, mental health needs, disability in housing and security also appear quite large in this spectrum of the needs that they define as their own life experience and circumstances. So families are experiencing this layered vulnerabilities, which are beyond income, health needs, housing insecurity, mental health concerns. And these interesting factors shape their daily lives and their ability to thrive in a condition. So all of these things, like take these things into account. And if you're wondering what this 34% other experience includes, most of the people who like reported this other are reporting abusive relationships, whether accidental events like fire, tornado that we have no control over at times, death of a family member, military deployment. So all of these things are very real and part of their own life experience that is shaping their ability to access and help and thrive. So what did they share?
Actually, can we go back to the other slide really quick?
Yes.
Thank you. When I was reviewing the content, this slide really stood out, and I wanted to call it out to as you think about your work group, and specifically when you look at the low income and the special healthcare needs. And if we tie it back to the activity we just did, we have to go to work, and you need solid childcare. And so when you're thinking about your family-friendly workplace recommendations, tying it into your what families are, the reality of what families are facing in real time, not just something that we're guessing at. When you look at your recommendations, tying that into what families are experiencing and what we can do as an early childhood, the spectrum across, and really make good decisions based off of data. And then the special healthcare needs really stood out to me because that touches multiple sectors in the early childhood world of, do we have enough spots? So as a family who might be dealing with special healthcare needs, do I have a childcare that is going to enroll my child? And then do I have the services when you think about Part B, Part C services across the needs of the child? Do I also have the correct, do I have support with benefits that my child might need? Do I have that support? And then tying that all in as a parent, we talked about very heavily stresses that parents have and stresses that children have. So looking at the mental health supports group. So this particular data set spoke to me across all of the needs that your work groups are dealing with. So really wanted to call that out, and hope that was really jarring for you when you're looking at your recommendations moving forward. Thank you, guys.
So just we'll look at like what the families have shared, and I will pass on to my colleague Priya to shed some light on that.
Thanks, Nisha. So I'll talk to you about the family well-being section of the survey. So this survey explored 5 domains of family well-being: economic, educational, physical and mental health, neighborhood and built environment, and social and community context. So we will look at how parents rated their experiences and complement that with population level indicators. So we plan to show you some maps and trends that show systemic patterns. So this dual lens, we hope, will help us understand both the lived experiences as well as the structural gaps. And We hope that this will help us identify gaps and needs that are beyond individual experiences and at the system level. So on this graph here, you see, before we interpret well-being scores, we asked families if they experienced significant life events in the past year. So families face significant life events, family changes, financial stress, health issues, and relocation were some of the events that they said that were part of their life in the previous year. So these disruptions shape how families experience stability. Next slide, please. So first, we will start with economic well-being and move through all the 5 domains, blending survey scores with parent voices and statewide indicators. So economic well-being covers employment, income, food access, transportation, housing, childcare affordability, and whether families believe that financial stability is possible. The ratings range from 1, that is severe hardship, to 5, which is strong stability, and these items capture both basic needs and a future outlook. So on this graph here, you see the mean scores that families gave themselves on their well-being. We asked them to rate their well-being in the current year as well as a year ago. So what you see here on the graph, on the lighter blue bar is how their well-being was a year ago, and the darker blue bar indicates how their current well-being is. So you can see on this graph that employment rose from a 2.9 to a 3, income rose from a 2.9 to it kind of stayed the same. It was just a decimal value difference in income. Food changed from a 3.3, it rose to a 3.4. Transportation rose from a 3.3 to a 3.4, and housing and childcare hover around a 3. So economic well-being improved slightly, but what we see is that the stability, it's well below the stability threshold of 3. So families still struggle to make both ends meet. So here we see a county level map of the median household income in Kansas. The legend shows that the darker colors represent higher income, while the lighter shades indicate lower income. So you may want to notice how urban areas like Johnson County and maybe Kansas City stand out with darker tones, which signal higher incomes. And in contrast, you can see regions like Southeast Kansas and other rural regions appear much lighter, reflecting lower incomes. So these disparities matter because families in lower income areas face compounded challenges in accessing affordable childcare and housing, in addition to also having lower income. So this map here shows the percentage of households spending 30% or more of their income on housing costs. Again, darker colors indicate higher cost burden. Urban counties like Johnson and Sedgwick show significant housing stress. You can see by the darker colors here that families spend a large share of their income on housing, leaving less for childcare, food, and health. Rural areas may have lower housing costs. You can see a little bit of the lighter regions in northwest and southwest. But combined with lower incomes, families still struggle to meet basic needs. This map here shows the ratio of children under the age of 3 to the available childcare openings by county. So the legend indicates that the darker colors represent higher ratios, meaning that there are more children competing for fewer slots. Notice how in the rural counties, they are shaded dark, signaling severe shortages. Even the urban areas face some gaps, but it might be due to different reasons. Maybe there is more demand and less supply. So there are different reasons, but still the ratio is higher in the darker counties. So these shortages compound economic stress. When families cannot find affordable childcare, it limits their employment options and also affects overall stability. This map shows the percentage of households receiving SNAP benefits across Kansas counties. So the legend indicates that the darker colors represent higher SNAP participation, while the lighter shades show lower reliance. Notice that in many of the rural and economically stressed counties, they are shaded dark, meaning a significant share of families depend on SNAP to meet basic food needs. Families depend on these benefits, but as we'll hear later in the presentation, they often don't stretch far enough in the month. So this quote here brings the numbers to life. So one parent said, flexible, low-cost childcare support. With both parents working, reliable care would let us focus on jobs without worry, stabilizing our daily lives. So this quote here echoes what we saw earlier in the childcare affordability availability map and also in the well-being scores for childcare affordability. And you will hear later how childcare gaps ripple across domains and affect employment, education, and even mental health. So one parent said, we need day-to-day short-term childcare. And this speaks directly to the gaps that we saw earlier. Childcare affordability scores hover around a 3, like the stability score, and the map also showed many counties with high ratios of children under the age of 3 per childcare opening. So without flexible options, parents risk losing jobs or their income, and this ripples across many domains of well-being. Rising food costs and limited benefits create persistent insecurity, especially in rural areas with SNAP reliance. As one parent said, SNAP benefits only cover maybe 16 days of food with very careful planning. There are almost no other resources for food, and the benefit amounts need to increase. So this aligns with what we saw in the SNAP map, with darker counties showing higher reliance on SNAP and often rural areas with lower incomes. So families still struggle to stretch benefits across the month, and this gap forces trade-offs between nutrition, health, and many other essentials. This quote is around the theme of how current eligibility rules discourage upward mobility and create instability. Because as one parent said, that they had gotten food stamps, but then they were a single mom and that it made them mad that they ended up taking it away because they made a little too much. So families earning slightly more lose critical support even though they still face housing and childcare expenses. And this policy gap, this eligibility cliff, traps families in a cycle where progress really is impossible. So this quote is about the cycle where taking a better job can make them actually worse off financially. And it reiterates the systemic issue that benefit cliffs often discourage families from pursuing better opportunities. I'll give you a second to read the quote. And then we'll move on to the next domain, which is educational well-being. So this domain covers school quality, adult education access, childcare quality, and educational potential. And the ratings use the same 1 to 5 scale as the other domains. Educational well-being improved slightly across the board from what you see on the map from the previous year to the current year. School quality and adult education show some progress, but childcare quality remains the weakest link and echoes what we saw in economic well-being. Really, childcare quality, affordability is a recurrent theme throughout the survey. Everywhere in the quotes, in what people said about their challenges, in all of the quantitative responses, childcare is something that came up everywhere. So families want more help for children with educational difficulties. As one parent said, I wish that there was a little bit more support for families who have children that are suffering with educational difficulties. This highlights gaps in specialized services, even though overall school quality might have improved. This quote here talks about, the need for extended school programs to balance work and family. So this reinforces the childcare quality concern and shows how educational and economic well-being intersect. Even though we ask parents, 5 different domains and individual questions in each domain, we cannot deny that all the well-being domains are interconnected and together they affect the quality of life of a person. So this really is a case for how the issues in the educational domain also intersect with economic well-being. So I'll let at this point Nisha to talk to us about physical and mental health well-being.
So this section focuses on physical and mental health well-being. And here are the items that the families responded to. So they range from access to healthcare and insurance to personal management of chronic illness and mental health, and even broader perceptions of whether physical and mental well-being are possible for people like them. So this helps us understand not just what families have, but what they believe is achievable, like what they can access, what they can get. Families rated items on a scale of 1 to 5, like before, where 1 is indicating severe challenges and 5 reflects strong stability and access. So the survey is capturing both current and perceived possibilities. If we look at the graph here, we'll see how healthcare access has improved from 3.32 to 3.45, and mental health rose from 3.18 to 3.36. Chronic illness management and insurance also improved slightly. So these are like all of these, as you see, among these substance use and alcohol, that is somehow is showing stability. Mental health and insurance remain sort of like mid-range in terms of the 3 benchmark that we have. So there are slight movement across most items, but there's also like room for improvement in all of these things. Moving from that, we are also like asking people for their experiences, and this quote from a participant highlights how local access makes a big difference. Like one parent shared, I visited our local community health center for a routine checkup for my kid. The staff was welcoming and the process was smooth. It was helpful to have access to care close to home. So the proximity and the positive experiences matter for families, because what if they didn't have access to care close to their home? Because some families have to drive 25 miles to get an access to a healthcare. So that is the everyday reality for a family. Moving on from there, there's this quote you can see now as it emphasizes the unmet needs for the occupational therapy, the physical therapy, and the speech therapies. Families need more specialized pediatric and mental health resources. While access has improved overall, but the specialized services in terms of education, in terms of healthcare, they still remain a gap, especially for children with developmental needs. If we move on from that slide, here's another code that our respondent have shared. This code sort of shows how financial strain intersects with health. A parent shared, like with the kids, service comes pretty easy, but as an adult with mental health issues, I make barely enough for rent and necessities. There's just not enough left over to spend for care on myself. It is new shoes come school time for the kids or a doctor visit for me. I choose them every time. This illustrates how economic and health well-being are intertwined. Even when access exists, affordability creates these impossible choices, and families are often sacrificing their own care for their children's needs. We'll discuss now this section, which focuses on neighborhood and built environment. Keep in mind that the well-being is not siloed. Physical and mental health depends on safe housing, community spaces, and a sense of belonging. That's what we are discussing in this next domain. If you can see the items here, that family has rated items on a 1 to 5 scale again, where 1 would mean severe challenges and 5 indicates strong stability. These items include housing quality, neighborhood safety for adult and children both, availability for community spaces, and whether the neighborhoods are fostering a sense of belonging. So families responded to questions like, are homes safe and livable? Do parents feel comfortable letting their children play outside? Are there parks, libraries, and community spaces? Does the neighborhood promote belonging? These questions help us understand how physical and social environments shape family life. So this domain is capturing safety, livability, and community engagement. Now, if we look at the scores here, you would see how housing quality improved from 3.34 to 3.47. The neighborhood safety rose from 3.56 to 3.72. Child safety and community spaces also increased slightly. Sense of belonging moved from 3.27 to 3.41. So if you compare and look back at the economic well-being, the scores are stronger, suggesting physical environment is probably less of a barrier than income or childcare. So there's slight movements across all items, and this is generally higher than the economic domain that we have seen before.
I just want to add a little note about the numbers that you see here. So this is a really large sample of more than 2,000 respondents, and the numbers that you see here, we say that they are significant and that it increased because what it means is that it is statistically significant. So because of the large sample, it is very sensitive to small changes in the data, but this does not mean that it is meaningful on the ground. So just because a family says that their housing quality improved from a 3.34 to a 3.41, that is a point, let's say like a 0.09, 0.09 decimal difference, it does not really reflect the reality on the ground. So when you look at these numbers, I just want to make sure that you keep in mind that these are not very big changes and these may not even be meaningful. The reality is that most families hover around a 3. I mean, they are mostly basically getting through. They are not at the highest level of well-being or quality of life that we want them to be at. So just giving you that context as we look at the numbers.
Yes, moving on from the slide, if you can see, this is the percentage of households with severe housing problems. So issues like overcrowding or cost burden is part of that. Again, If you look at the legend, the darker colors indicate severe housing problem, and the lighter ones are decreasingly less housing issues. You can still see how in the Crawford County or the Gary County or the Riley County, these are the darker counties within the map. So just to look back and think about in your own regions, like what those darker shades in those counties might mean for you. While families are reporting better housing quality, affordability still remains a major challenge. So echoing what we saw in economic well-being.
I'd like to add a point here when I first saw this with the housing problems, to tie it into the panel work and our work groups, especially focused in on the work group that's looking at recruitment, retention. We have a lot of campaigns going on, why childcare matters. Let's open up, be an entrepreneur, be in your own home. So when we're struggling to recruit childcare providers and those who are opening up a business in their house, they may be renting. There may be issues with I'm not allowed to. So when you couple that with the severe housing problems, it takes it a whole different layer up. Not just that we can't find somebody to open up their own business. Like, why wouldn't we want that? Don't you want to be an entrepreneur? Couple that with this slide, really brings home some of the issues and really just was very meaningful for me. So I really appreciated this heat map.
And to be honest, we want the heat maps to stay in people's mind because, we forget about the data at times, but this darker shades and lighter shades of heat maps, they probably make you realize a lot more about what's happening all across Kansas and all across the counties that we're seeing. So moving on from this heat map, what are the things that our family has been saying through the qualitative responses that we had for them? So this is one quote that we got. It highlights how families feel locked out of housing market despite having a stable employment. Like one parent shared support with down payment assistance for a house would make a huge difference. I'm 37, married with 3 kids, and still can't afford a house. The more money I make, the higher the cost of living becomes. Houses are unaffordable, quality is poor, and mortgage rates have pushed me out of the housing market. This underscores the housing quality alone is not enough. Affordability is the real barrier. If we move on from this slide, we'll see regarding community spaces. This quote sort of emphasizes the need for safe and family-centered spaces in our community. What the parents shared, family-centered, safe recreational spaces, and the community would be also of a big help. While scores for community spaces has improved slightly, and the scores that we have shared before, families still crave more places to gather, more safer places to play and connect with each other. I'll pass it on to Priya again to discuss the family well-being domains of social and community context.
So this is our last domain and we call it the social and community context. So this domain captures the strength of family relationships, parenting confidence, social networks, and opportunities for community involvement. It also includes access to legal services that are critical for stability. So if you would please move on to the next slide. So these items here show how families perceive their social environment, from confidence in parenting and supportive relationships to the quality of social networks and community engagement. It's really moving from within the home to the community. So this domain is one of those that showed, over the board, like it showed at least some scores in a 4, For example, you see in other relationships that parents rated their current well-being on a scale of 4. The mean well-being was on a scale of 4, which is much higher than any other item that we saw in the rest of the survey. Also, you see that parents rated themselves higher on parenting skills, close to a 4, which is also great. So families did report strong improvements in parenting confidence and relationships. Well, mostly at a 4, and social support and community involvement also improved, but compared to parenting skills and other relationships, we can say that they still remain moderate, and so there is still room for growth. So when we asked families what helps them to connect to services, families overwhelmingly cited referrals from friends and family. So what you see on the top bar is a 47%. So that's close to 1,000 responses, nearly 50% of the responses that we have. And compared to smaller numbers who said that they would rely on online tools or social media to connect to services. So this reinforces that trust and relationships drive access. Just as we asked what encourages families to access services, we also followed up with what was considered as a barrier to access. And not surprisingly, participants expressed frustration over eligibility thresholds. I see a comment. It's terribly hard to get a house loan when you do home child care because after deductions on taxes, it shows you make very little. And if you have been doing child care for a while and can prove yourself to your bank or credit union, it's usually used easier. I wouldn't say that it's a barrier for people wanting to start a home child care because most don't think about that issue until later. So yes, that's very true. And it's on the chat. I'm reading it from the chat. Thank you for adding to that context. So, I mean, with barriers to access, when we ask people, just as we asked them what encourages them to access services, we also followed up with, what would be a barrier, and they said eligibility criteria. Like this participant here said that trying to access any type of assistance in my local area has become a headache because apparently I make too much money for assistance, but not enough to make it without the help. So this is something that came up. We will discuss more about this in the latest slides too. And people express frustration over these eligibility thresholds. So the previous slide, please. Thank you. Then they pointed out about the long wait list, which suggests that, community warmth matters, but that structural gaps exist. So this parent said that they accessed a local parenting support group, which was incredibly helpful. But navigating waitlists for child therapy services has been frustrating, and it highlighted the need for more accessible mental health resources. So overall, they said that the community's warmth kept them hopeful, but then it just suggests that structural gaps still exist. We are moving towards the end of our presentation, so I would like to summarize some key themes. As we wrap up, a few themes stand out. Number 1, availability does not guarantee access. Trust and continuity matter, and economic, emotional, and physical well-being are deeply connected. So these insights raise important questions for us about how we design systems that respond to real family needs. So that is something that we can talk about in our discussion if you'd like. And then to sum all this up, what we heard from families says that there should be resources geared towards the middle class, the people who have insurance but can't afford the deductible, the people who make too much to qualify for SNAP but are barely putting food on the table, and the people who are one emergency away from being homeless. So families caught in the middle often fall through the cracks. They earn too much for help but not enough for stability. And as we think about next steps, we can talk about how we can build systems that truly support all families. So that's the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Priya. And to really bring it back to the panel's work. And when you think about the work that the recommendations and the very specific work groups that we have, and when I say we, I mean globally, you as panel members have decided this is what we want to focus on. These are cross-cutting recommendations we would like to see shared with the Children's Cabinet. Really want to keep this data in mind. And if we could go back to the previous slide on the cross-cutting themes, I think that really sums up where we've been having very intentional discussion. So Priya, when you talked about availability doesn't equate to access, though you haven't been on every panel meeting, we first started our panel meetings, when we started talking about Kansas News and specifically looking at access to rural health care and the drought of the pediatricians across the state. So, where are families building those relationships and trust to get their medical care? Is it through the health department? And is it through the school nurses now, networks that you're right. It's about relationships and building that family trust, knowing that we're filling gaps. And what we're looking at. So I just want to thank you for presenting on behalf of the panel and really challenge our work groups when you start meeting individually that you take this data and you find opportunities to understand as you're drafting recommendations, and I know they would be open to like where are gaps, where are data that we're missing, and I do appreciate you taking the time to share that statistically, because we saw a point or a quarter up, that does not mean that there's been a meaningful change. The bar graphs just show you that there was a change, but what it really implies to families. As somebody who did not enjoy statistics when I was getting my degree, I appreciate it so much more now. And when we can have researchers share that with us, because a bar graph just is a bar graph until we can equate it to what it means for families. And so I, again, thank you guys for presenting. This was very informative for me, and we will have just, before we move to our next agenda item, I want to make sure that there's not any questions that any panel members have right now that are burning while we have our presenters on screen with us.
I have a question.
Yeah, Tammy, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Tammy Benham. I am representing Southeast Kansas Library System. So every indicator that you presented, people indicated that it increased, right? So every quality of life indicator, they indicated that they're better off. Is this something you see across years? So every year it looks like this, and I was very blown away that they were saying that everything is better all the time.
Right. So that's the context I wanted to talk to you about. Like they said they were better off, but they said they were better off by a decimal point. So they said, the mean scores indicate that they were at a 3.3 the previous year and a 3.35 in the current year, which is like a very small change, and it might not have changed. It might be. So when you take the survey, you are asking yourself, so how am I feeling now? And then you rate yourself and you're thinking about a year ago, how did I feel? And you probably feel like you're better off now compared to how you felt last year. So that's how the survey is designed. You it's a retrospective survey where you rate your current well-being and your previous year's well-being at the same time. So it does mean that they feel better now. That's great. But also the overall scores are not great. I mean, they hover around a 3 is what we need to take into account. I mean, they are basically just feeling okay. They are not feeling great. They are not at a 4. They're not at a 5. They don't feel very stable and secure consistently. They are at a 3, which means they feel okay. They're not. And also we need to look at the differences, the proportion of respondents who answered from a 1 to a 3. We don't know how many answered that they were really bad. This is a mean score. So this kind of averages across all respondents. So overall, people felt that they were stable and that their well-being improved from the last year, but we still have to see how it differs across populations, across regions, and then maybe across people who have younger kids, people who have older kids. So there are some of those differences that we would still need to look at in order to come up with a strong, say strongly and with reliance that well-being improved from last year to this year.
And just to add to that, Tammy, like the well-being domains and the well-being sections that we're seeing today, this is part of our 2025 parent survey. And this is the first time we have included the well-being section into the survey. Because as states are moving from like service access to needs to actual well-being on the families, we felt the need to include all of those domains to understand our families better. So we do have this year's data. We plan to have the next year. Probably that's when we'll be able to see if there's actually a change every year. So yeah, that's about it. And I can see a comment.
Actually,
yeah,
Anisha, because we are this is a open forum. We're not going to use the chat questions. So I did see Christy had her hand up, and then we will ask that question out loud, or we'll ask Heather to join us. But Christy had her hand up, so I'm going to pass this to Christy Smith.
Thanks, Melissa. I do think you might have answered it, but I want to clarify. Do you see, because that absolutely makes sense. I mean, when you reflect back on where a person, like your personal self, and when you reflect back on where you were a year ago, generally speaking, you had the adversity and adaptation to make that change. So you can see that. Do you see that though because y'all said y'all started the survey in 2019, but do you see that same trend in every year? Did that happen? Not comparing like numbers, not comparing 3s to 3, but in every year was that reflection? Because that's pretty curious to me. Like I'm like interesting that when you're stuck on it, like in a personal space, and you are stuck with a really hard challenge from a family perspective, but then a year from now, you see that as you overcame it, which is, I know it's small, but I'll take small steps. But I'm also curious to know if that's a trend every year or if that was just this year.
So this well-being section is a new section that we introduced this year. So this is the first time we have administered this section of the survey. So we'll keep watching, we'll keep monitoring the trends over the years, and that will tell us what it looks like year after year. And also with different populations, we still want to administer the survey with different populations and also do like a pre-test and a post-test, with people who receive clinical services to see how those differences come up. So just a couple years and we'll be able to answer that for sure.
Okay, thank you. Good question, Christy. And Heather, if you would introduce yourself and ask your question, please.
Hi, I'm Heather Faulkner from Reno County, and I was just curious if there was a way to get access to some of this data for like a specific county. I'm just wondering if it would help inform us on some of the work we're doing here in Reno County, and if it's also creating those small margins of improvement. Sometimes I feel like in the last several years since COVID, so much of the industry has changed around childcare. Just navigating are the things we're doing actually making the difference we're hoping they are making, if that makes sense.
I I can tell you that the overall sample size is good enough for us to drill down by region, by Kansas regions. But we may, I don't know about Reno County exactly, we may not have a good enough of a sample size, to make a reliable judgment on what it looks like at the county level. But we can definitely look at what the region looks like, if that would be helpful. Or maybe even combine a few neighboring counties if the sample size is not good enough, maybe combine a few neighboring counties and then look at the data. So that is possible for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
All right. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed today's presentation, and always wanted to and appreciate the value that it has threading back to our work groups and the overall mission of the recommendations panel. So thank you, Priya and Nishta, for making this very digestible to all of us, and appreciate all of your work, and can't wait to have you back again next year and see the trends of the following year, with this being the first year with the well-being questions. Thank you, guys, and we will move on to our work group. So very high level work group summary, and I don't expect anybody to come off of mute. I just wanted to, I poked around in your notes. And again, now we have 4 work groups. We have the ecosystem, the family-friendly workplaces, the targeted journey, and the mental health support. So not asking for any overall work group input and slides. May get a little bit more deep into December after you guys have another opportunity to meet. But I did, if we can move over to the next slide, Lindsay, I did spend some time and pulled out some things just to share across, because that was our commitment, to share out what everybody's doing. And the ecosystem has combined work groups. We have, changed our structure. They have some great work where I was able to take a peek and their line goals across pillars, and then they're continuing to combine and narrow ideas. And what I do appreciate is, with the addition of the new members, that they're really honoring the space of, all of these thought partners coming together in one group. And in the family-friendly workplaces, and we're seeing that trend going, is you phoned a friend and you had Child Care of Kansas joined your work group to ask what was happening and on a statewide level for family-friendly workplace. So I love that you're making those natural connections, and you're organically offering and asking those partners to join. The targeted journey is continuing on that theme, and they were reaching out for system collaboration. They're talking with KSDE, specifically with their CTE programs, Casito partners who are working with the high school students, and thought this was great, looking at the customized early education. And that is our partner across the state, who's really focusing in on substitute pools. So in the targeted journey, if you would like to connect to customized early education, definitely can make those warm handoffs and introductions for you. And then you guys are working at defining terms across the system, which can be confusing because pathway for early childhood might be used in a different manner in the Department of Education. And you guys are recognizing that. So making sure that you have working definitions across the different languages. And then mental health support's also working on having a defined definition, defining the mental health ecosystem, continuing to assess current work and exploring opportunities across sectors, and then moving forward from the October 15 event and taking those seeds and how you're planning them and moving them across with your recommendations. So I will be joining the work group this session. So when you see Melissa, just float in to your work group. Just know I'm there just to listen and learn. And Lindsay, if we can move to the next slide. That is not my slide from the slide deck. Okay, I'm not sure. that could have been error on my end as I was working on the slides at this in real time. But in 2026, that was a placeholder. Okay, so if you want to move forward, we will do that in the last slide. So resources in advance. Wanted to just let you guys know that if you know of a father or you are a father and the Family Advisory Council is recruiting for members of their fatherhood, early childhood, and also their women maternal work groups. So you can learn more, and there's the link below. But the fatherhood work group is new and really continuing to work really hard to recruit members. So if you know anybody who would be interested, or if you're interested in any of these work groups in the maternal and child health side, please join. Our Kansas Kids SIDS Network is also going to have a sudden and unexpected infant death investigation training targeting social workers, law enforcement, EMS, and fire. As I've shared before, I'm a social worker by trade. I have participated in this training. It is so informative and really in that, thinking about our Department for Children and Family, special investigators and social workers who are doing some very tough work. And I'm sure that they will be filling the seats in that training. And also, Casito will be offering their fan training, which is facilitating attuned interactions. This training, I believe, their second cohort, and this training is ideal for early childhood professionals who provide coaching, consultation, technical assistance, or supervision. It's a 2-day commitment, and there's registration also embedded in this slide. If you want to move to the next one, Lindsay. And if any of you, as our partners, would like to advertise any of your events going on, please let us know. I try to pick statewide events and embed them in our resources. But we really also want your input. In the I'd say winter, springish time, the panel offers a early childhood governance summit. And that's an opportunity. And, this is a slide and a visual from our governance structure in the state of Kansas, where we ask our partners that feed up and down through the panel to present on, tell us more about what you are doing. Well, my challenge as your new chair is to make sure that governance structure and summit still meets your needs, to continue to stay curious. What is happening in our states? So what do I'm going to ask for a conversation right now. Or what do you want to know as a panel member about these other groups that are happening underneath the early childhood recommendations panel, and what can be improved? I personally have been a part of that governance summit as the designated lead for the Child Care Systems Improvement Team. So I came to the summit and I presented on what was happening. And but it was a one-way conversation. So I was just giving the panel information. What I have really enjoyed is, as your chair, is those two-way conversations where you have that. So we've been exploring some ways to really reshape that governance summit with some possibility of providing each group with 2 or 3 questions that they can come up with. Why is your information important to our ecosystem, our early childhood ecosystem? Possibly, stealing from another group that I am. Tell us, in the next 10 years, what would be the headline in Kansas for your particular group? So where do you see your group is going? And those are just some initial ideas, but I think we can make this governance summit much more enriched and much more interactive for not just you as panel members, but anybody listening and wanting to know about the early childhood governance structure. because even with the formation of the Office of Early Childhood, some of these current work groups will fall naturally into the Office of Early Childhood, but because the early childhood ecosystem is so broad, these other ones will still exist and still have value within that ecosystem. So I'm going to pause and really elicit some conversation or some input from those of you who are returning panel members. And though, again, those that are new, but what could we do differently to make this a more enriching segment of our work? Who's a returning panel member and like to share? Natalie, you're a returning panel member. I'm going to put you on the spot. What could we do better with the governance summit?
I know it's a challenge for some people, but possibly doing like a face-to-face in-person opportunity for the panel just one time in the whole year would be really awesome. Being able to be virtual makes it a lot easier for more people to be involved. But that face-to-face connection is really a different level. If we would be able to get in person once a year, I think that would be a really a cool thing.
I appreciate that feedback. And we're taking really good notes. And so, yes, we'll take that into consideration. Any other returning members?
Melissa, this is Amy Gottchammer from Google's Learning. I was just going to support Natalie 100%, but I was going to say too, maybe if we could do some sort of survey and see how many people, might be able to come to one centralized location. But if that's even too difficult for our entire group, we could look at maybe, 2 regional get-togethers or something, and at least have, the bulk of us get together in 2 separate places if we can't all agree or on one. So just as a thought, but I love the idea of us getting together face to face.
Okay, so we do have tabling that. That is a great suggestion. And that might be for another panel year, because honestly, we are moving into wintertime, and this is going to like the logistics of managing that, just going to be very transparent, that may be difficult. So if we cannot do that, so let's focus back on the governance summit there. And what would you like to know, or how could that be, if there's any different tailoring in regards to the information that you want to know about within the early childhood governance structure, because that is, the base premise for the summit. And if you don't have any ideas right now, and you want to think about that, just feel free to shoot Lindsay and I an email, and we'll take all of that into consideration. And then we'll go back and take the in-person or regional suggestion also. So, okay, as we continue to move on our agenda, just a reminder that our December 5th is the actual Children's Cabinet and Trust Fund board meeting. And if you've never listened or you want to join, those are also live streamed, and would encourage you to get on the live stream and be a part of that. And then reminder that our next meeting will be December 19th. And as we close today, before we go into our work groups, I want to share our bright spots. If we can move forward on that, Lindsay, to the next slide. Okay, love stealing information from you guys, or when you guys share it. So to the left of your screen, there was a Parents as Teachers conference in Puerto Rico. Like I would have loved to have gone to Puerto Rico. If anybody knows Lisa at KSDE and the parents as teacher, staff member there, she got to go to Puerto Rico. But what she shared was so exciting. At this Parents as Teachers conference, which is a national conference, so they're bringing together parents as teachers, representative from all the states. They give out 4 awards, just 4. Kansas got 2 of them. So we are rocking at a statewide level. Yes, see Tammy clapping. I'm so excited. And I want to meet George and I want to meet Brittany. But George is the Parent Educator of the Year. He represents USD 202. In Kansas City, Kansas. And then Brittany is the Parents' Choice, had the inaugural Parents' Choice Award, and she represents Shawnee Mission USD 512. So shout out to both George and Brittany. And then in the middle, at the governor's conference, that I hope Trina and one of our panel members has been able to sleep since then, because they put on an amazing conference and they were busy for 3 days straight. They just moved. But they have, in one of the luncheons, we had our own KU CPPR staff, Dr. Bears, who was given an award for her work in Kansas. She is amazing. If you've ever been on any meetings or had the opportunity to be in any work groups with Kayla, she brings a passion for the well-being side. And then below, under our spark wheel, we have our very own Melissa Martin. She is, and Melissa, do you want to share about the event where you were at?
Sure. I was doing site visits with some of our Kansas programs, and this is at Ottawa Middle School. And I'm joined by Ottawa staff and their supervisor there. And what they have happening in their schools that support children of all ages from early childhood into career is just absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, I love the visual. And then we had Camp Connect, which I believe Desiree may have attended, though I didn't have a photo of her. And that was put on by the Child Care Coalition of Kansas, really giving home providers an opportunity to regroup and center themselves for all of the hard work that they do every single day caring for children's. And then I'm going to end, because this was one of my favorite brights. Yes.
I would just like to shout out, you have April on the call, and April headed up and put on the event.
Okay, well, it was Desiree Strait from CCPC, and she's right. I do have April still on the call, and April is from CCPC. So I hope you took an opportunity after you planned this event, April, that you also still took care of yourself at the same time, because I know how exhausting that is to plan an event and also make sure everybody else is taken care of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then again, my bright spots. I had been traveling a lot the last couple of weeks and was catching up with emails. And Tammy shared this. First of all, I did not know there was a Toronto, Kansas. So if you did not know there was a Toronto, Kansas, it is in Woodson County, because I have to do a deep dive and understand where all these towns exist in Kansas. But she shared with me this post from the Kansas Library Association about the best small library in Kansas. So that was in Toronto, and I believe they have a population of less than 500. But what they are doing in that small library is amazing for their community. And in the exchange that I had with Tammy is that I really hoped that that their director, Jessie, understood the upstream prevention that she does on a daily basis for her community and for the children in that. And community, families, and children, because the amount of programming that is going on in that library to support such a small community. And I would encourage you to spend some time reading the posts, and I spent some time looking, just making those small ripples will really have lifetime impact. And so love that Tammy shared that, and giving a big shout out to Jessie and her award and the efforts that are going on in that community. So Kansas in Action, can't say enough about all of the faces as we end, especially tying it back to all of, everybody on these slides have a huge impact to the families that we are working and championing in today's, in today's presentation to really pull it all together. So thank you for all the work that you're doing. If you are traveling next week, have safe travels. I hope everybody has some really good stretchy pants because I don't really think about it as Thanksgiving. I think about it as this is a great time to celebrate food, which is one of my favorite hobbies. Really can't say enough about everything that everybody does, and can't wait to see you again on December 19th. And enjoy your work group time. And that concludes our formal recommendations panel meeting today.
We will get the breakout rooms are open. You're welcome to jump in there if you need help getting assigned.